This is Mrs. Miller, and I'm here to share an article with you today. So most of my days are pretty much the same. When I wake up, the first thing I do is get a cup of coffee and get the newspaper and read the newspaper for the first half hour of the morning, just relaxing. And so I'm going to share an article that I read on Sunday in the Sunday paper about what we're going through right now. The title, before I start that, it came from the newspaper. So do you think this would be fiction or nonfiction? Fiction is fake and nonfiction is not fake or real. And yes, you're right. If it's in the newspaper, it's probably nonfiction. This is real information, real things that are going on. And we have talked, second and especially third graders, we've talked about nonfiction text features like titles and subtitles and bold print. We've talked about words that are in italics, like kind of slanted writing, to show you that a word is important, something you might want to pay attention to. We have photographs that are non-fiction text features that often have captions that give you more information. There's diagrams, there's graphs, there's all kinds of non-fiction text features. Now this newspaper article, there's really only a couple of them that stand out to me. The first one is the title, and it is in bold print, and it says, Americans howl at pandemic. Okay, the pandemic is what we're going through right now, the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're all experiencing some social distancing from that, staying at home. And so the subtitle in this, it says, nightly, people are letting loose with a show of unity. I added a word in there. Anyway, so at night, people are doing something to show we're united, okay? Unity. We're joining together. So people are joining together to just release some emotion, okay? And here, the next thing you see, it says Associated Press. That's where this article came from, and it came out of Denver. When you read an article in a newspaper, at the beginning of the article, they usually have the location of where the article originated from. So I'm going to read this, and then at the end, I'm going to go back to the first paragraph because there's some tricky words in there. We've talked about how you can use the context of other words in the paragraph to help figure out tricky words, and we're going to go back and talk about that a little bit at the end. So I'm just going to read a little bit of the article because I think it's something fun that you might want to do with your family. It starts with a few people letting loose with some tentative yelps. Then neighbors emerge from their homes and join, forming a roiling chorus of howls and screams that pierce the twilight to end another day's monotonous, forced isolation. So people are letting out howls and with all their neighbors. From California to Colorado to Georgia and upstate New York, Americans are taking a moment at 8 p.m. each night to howl in a quickly spreading ritual that has become a wrenching response of a society cut off from one another by the coronavirus pandemic. So it's at 8 o'clock every night, and it said it's a spreading ritual, a ritual that is done every night. A ritual is something that's done repeatedly. You do it over and over, and there are certain aspects to it that are the same. The howl is to thank the nation's healthcare workers and first responders for their selfless sacrifices, much like the balcony applause and singing in Italy and Spain. Others do it to reduce their pain, isolation, and frustration. Some have other reasons, such as to show support for the homeless. Um, and then it talks about how in Colorado, Governor Jared Polis has encouraged residents to participate. Children who miss their classmates and backyard dogs join in too. Their own yowls punctuated by the occasional fireworks, horn blowing, and bell ringing. So they're howling and it's punctuated or ended by maybe a firework going off or somebody ringing bells. The punctuation is kind of like the punctuation we use in sentences to tell us how to show emotion, what kind of emotion we want to say or want to use. And here they're using the horn blowing and bell ringing and fireworks to add that extra sense of emotion. There's something very Western about howling that's resonating in Colorado, the call and response aspect of it. Most people try it and love to hear the howl in return. So it's kind of like when you think of animals communicating with each other and one of them howls or makes a noise and the other one responds. And it's their way of communicating. And it's kind of fun once you get out there and you make a howl and then you wait to see if somebody howls back. Okay. We hear that a lot out here with our owls. We'll hear one owl hooting and then another one hoots back across the way. So, the virus's impact has been really different for everybody. And this is just a way of being able to scream and shout and let up some pent up frustration, feelings of loss, the loss of being able to hang out with your friends and go to school and things like that. And it's really spread. It's crazy how much it's spread. It has the group that started this has nearly 500,000 members from all 50 states and 99 countries that have joined in. And they did it, the people who started it did it because they knew people were feeling isolated and they wanted to get a connection between people. They never thought it was going to take off the way it did. And the article ends with it saying, when people look back on this, and with so many sad stories, hopefully they'll also remember this as one of the good things. So, anyway, we're going to go back and look at, I promised you we would look at that first paragraph and talk about some of the tricky words in here. And it started out, it said, it starts with a few people letting loose with some tentative yelps, and then neighbors emerge from their homes and join, forming a roiling chorus of howls and screams. So when you think about a roiling chorus, I didn't know what the word roiling was, but I kind of used the context to figure out what it was, and then I checked to make sure I was right, and I was. A roiling chorus, when something's roiling, it can become kind of annoying or irritating, but this doesn't go on for very long, so it's really not too irritating. But when you think of forming a chorus, if you think of music and everybody joins together and they're singing, it shows you those words help you to understand what it meant by tentative yelps. They started by letting loose with some tentative yelps. They weren't all joining in and yelling and hollering at that point. It was just a little yelp. Think of a little animal who had its foot stepped on and it lets out a little, ah! Okay? You go outside, nobody else is doing this, and you let out a kind of a You're not quite sure if you should be doing it. Not certain. Tentative is not certain. So you let out a little howl. Oh, oh, and you don't hear anything, but then you wait and you do it. And I'm not doing it too loud. You want to yelp louder or holler louder than that. So anyway, the more you hear everybody joining in, that's when it gets to be a roiling chorus. So you can tell the tentative yelps are just, they're not certain. They're starting with the little yelps, and then they form a roiling chorus of howls and screams. Okay, so they're joining in and it gets stronger. And it said that they do this to end another day's monotonous, forced isolation. Okay, you think about the isolation you're experiencing right now. When you're isolated, there's nobody around you. There's only a few people. We only have a few people that we're allowed to be around because we're trying to social distance and stop the disease from spreading. So we're stuck in our homes. We're doing pretty much the same thing every day. We can't go out. We can't do the things we used to do. Gets to be old doing the same thing every day. And that's what monotonous is. Monotonous means it's dull, kind of tedious, just repetitive, same kinds of things. So I'm hoping that this is something that will break your monotony. This is something that you can look forward to at the end of the day to get rid of some of that energy and some of the frustration and pent up just wanting to get outside. So I hope to hear you tonight at 8 o'clock and tomorrow night and however long this goes on. So I hope you have a good day and I'll see you soon.